You're sitting across from someone you really want to impress. Maybe it's a first date. Maybe it's a job interview. Maybe it's dinner with the in-laws the first time and you desperately want them to like you. Everything is going well, you're being charming, you're being smooth, you say something clever, you reach for your glass feeling good about yourself, and then out of nowhere, hic. Your own body just betrayed you. No warning, no permission, no off switch. A little spasm fires deep in your chest and yanks a sound out of your throat that you did absolutely nothing to cause. And now everyone at the table is looking at you. You force a laugh, you hold your breath, you try to drink water from the wrong side of the glass like some kind of lunatic. And the whole time, one dumb question is floating in the back of your mind. What is even happening right now? Why does my own body keep doing this to me? Here's the part nobody ever tells you. That hiccup, that stupid, useless, embarrassing little sound is one of the oldest things you own. It is older than your species, older than mammals, older than the dinosaurs. It is roughly 400 million years old. And the last time it actually did something useful, you weren't a human. You weren't even an animal that lived on land. You were a fish breathing through gills under the water. I know exactly how that sounds. Stay with me because by the end of this you are going to know 3 things for certain. The real reason your body hiccups and why it does absolutely nothing for you today. The strange tangled wiring left behind by your fish ancestors that makes it physically impossible to switch off. And the reason the humans who hiccup the most aren't even breathing air yet. This isn't a glitch in your body. It's a fossil, and it is hiding inside every single person watching this right now. Let's start with what's actually happening inside your chest because it's stranger than you'd guess. Right under your lungs, there's a big dome-shaped sheet of muscle called the diaphragm. It's the main engine of your breathing. Every calm breath you've ever taken, that muscle pulled down smoothly to fill your lungs, then relaxed to let the air out. Smooth, quiet, automatic, you never think about it until it decides to have a seizure. Because that's basically what a hiccup is. A sudden, violent, involuntary spasm of the diaphragm. It jerks down hard and sucks a rush of air into you fast all at once. And then, about 35 milliseconds later, faster than you can blink, a little flap at the top of your windpipe called the glottis slams shut. That slam cutting off the air that was just rushing in is the sound. That's the hic. So your body basically inhales sharply and then immediately tells that same air to get out. It's the least coordinated thing your body does, and it does it with total confidence. And here's something that might change how you see that muscle. The diaphragm isn't only for breathing. It's the same muscle that shudders when you sob, that pumps when you belly laugh until your sides ache, that clenches when you're scared out of your mind. It's one of the most emotional muscles you own, wired straight into how you feel. So when it seizes into a hiccup, you're watching a hijack of the exact machinery behind your laughter and your tears, commandeered for a few dumb minutes by a reflex far older than any feeling you've ever had. Now here's the detail I want you to hold on to because it's going to crack this whole thing wide open. The sound isn't the point. The gulp of air isn't the point. The point is that snap, the glottis slamming shut right after the intake. Remember that little closing valve is the fingerprint that solves the entire mystery. And notice something else while we're here. You can't hiccup on purpose. You can't stop one on purpose. There's no button, no muscle you can flex, no thought that ends it. It is one of the only things your body does where you, the person supposedly in charge, have zero say. And humans have been baffled by it for as long as we've had words. It's why almost every language on Earth names it after the sound it makes, a little verbal shrug at a noise nobody has ever been able to control. We couldn't explain it, so we just spelled out the hic and moved on. Let's get to the thing that quietly drove scientists crazy for centuries. A hiccup does nothing, nothing at all. Doctors even gave it a serious-sounding Latin name, singultus, which makes it feel important and medical, when really it's just the fancy word for the most pointless noise your body knows how to make. A normal bout fires somewhere between 4 and 60 times a minute, ticking along at a weirdly steady beat like a metronome you never set and cannot switch off. Regular, rhythmic, machine-like. Hold on to that word machine because that's exactly what it is. Think about your other reflexes for a second. Every one of them has a job. A cough blasts junk out of your airway. A sneeze clears your nose. Vomiting throws poison out of your stomach before it can kill you. A blink shields your eye in a fraction of a second. Even goosebumps had a purpose once. Every automatic thing your body does, it does for a reason except this one. A hiccup clears nothing, it protects nothing, it fixes nothing. In a grown adult, it is pure, pointless noise. And I can hear the objection forming in your head right now. You're telling me my body evolved a whole dedicated reflex with its own nerve, its own circuit, its own trigger that accomplishes absolutely nothing? Yes, that is exactly what I'm telling you. And that's the puzzle that bothered people for a very long time because evolution is brutally cheap. It does not like waste. A reflex costs energy to build and energy to run, and out in the wild, a random loud hic at the wrong moment is the kind of noise that tells a predator exactly where the soft, slow snack is hiding. A useless, dangerous reflex should have been deleted millions of years ago. Unless it was never kept for you at all. Unless it was kept for someone who used it 400 million years ago and you just inherited the leftovers. To find that someone, we have to follow a wire. Let's follow that wire because your body was kind enough to leave us a map. The muscle that hiccups the diaphragm is controlled by a single nerve called the phrenic nerve. Now you'd expect that nerve to be short and sensible. The diaphragm sits right in the middle of your torso, so the wire that runs it should start nearby, right? Wrong. The phrenic nerve starts all the way up in your neck. And it takes a long, ridiculous detour down through your chest, past your heart, all the way down to finally reach a muscle it could have almost touched from the start. It's like wiring a lamp in your living room by running the cord up into the attic, across the roof, and back down again. No electrician on Earth would design it that way. And that's the point. Nobody designed it. Neil Shubin, a paleontologist who literally wrote a book called Your Inner Fish, points at this exact nerve as one of the clearest scars our history ever left on us. So why on earth does the wire for your breathing muscle start way up in your neck? Because in your ancient ancestors, the breathing gear was up near the neck. That's where the gills were. As bodies stretched and rearranged over hundreds of millions of years, the diaphragm slid down into the chest, but the nerve stayed anchored up top, getting dragged out longer and longer like a rubber band that never snapped back. Your hiccup runs on ancient plumbing, and that plumbing points straight back into the water. Let's go back there now, way back, 400 million years, to a slice of time called the Devonian. And I want you to really picture it because there's nothing here you'd recognize. No humans, no mammals, no dinosaurs. They won't show up for well over 100 million years. The land is mostly bare rock and low green scraps near the water's edge. Almost every living thing that matters is still in the sea, or in the rivers, or in the warm, muddy, shrinking pools. In one of those pools is your ancestor. It's a fish, but a strange one. A lobe-finned fish, the branch of the family tree that would one day drag itself up onto land and eventually become you. Some of these animals, like the lungfish that still exist today, had something remarkable. They had gills and they had a primitive early lung. They lived in stagnant, oxygen-starved water, the kind of green swamp where a normal fish suffocates. And to survive, they did something very specific. They gulped. They pulled water and air in through the mouth, pushed it back over the gills, and, crucially, they had to seal off the passage to that little lung so the water wouldn't come flooding in and drown them. So the move was this: a sharp pull in, then a valve snaps shut. Inhale and close the gate, now say it back to yourself. A sharp intake followed instantly by a valve slamming shut. Where have you heard that before? That's a hiccup. That embarrassing sound you make at the dinner table is, beat for beat, a 400 million-year-old technique for breathing in a swamp without drowning. Let's meet the animal that proves this actually happened, because we have its body. In 2004, in the frozen rock of Ellesmere Island, high up in the Canadian Arctic, that same paleontologist, Neil Shubin, and his team pulled out a fossil around 375 million years old. They named it Tiktaalik. And Tiktaalik is one of the strangest creatures you will ever lay eyes on, because it's caught in the act of becoming us. It had scales and fins and gills like a fish. But it also had a flat, crocodile-shaped head, a neck. Real fish don't have necks, sturdy ribs, and inside those front fins the first hint of a wrist. It could prop itself up in the shallows and lift its head out of the water. Scientists nicknamed it the fishapod because it isn't quite a fish and isn't quite a four-legged animal. It's the halfway point, frozen in stone between the water and the land. And a creature like that, straddling both worlds, gulping air at the surface of a stale, choking pool, is exactly the kind of ancestor who would hand down a gulp and slam reflex to everything that came after it, including you. Let's talk about the smoking gun because it's swimming in a pond somewhere near you right this second. In 2003, a team of researchers led by Christian Strauss laid out the leading explanation for all of this, and their star witness was the humble tadpole. A tadpole is basically a live replay of our own deep past. It starts life in the water, breathing with gills, and then slowly transforms into an air-breathing adult. And here's the thing. When a tadpole breathes with its gills, it pumps water into its mouth, drives it over the gills, and to keep that water out of its developing lungs, it snaps its glottis shut. Sharp intake, glottis closed. And when the team looked at the actual electrical rhythm firing through the nerves to make that happen, the exact pattern, the timing, the sequence, it was almost identical to the pattern that fires when you hiccup. Same circuit, same rhythm, same ancient program. In the tadpole, that program moves water over the gills and keeps the lungs dry. It keeps the animal alive. In you, that identical program runs, fires the diaphragm, slams the glottis, and does nothing at all. It's the same software still installed, running on hardware that threw the gills away hundreds of millions of years ago. You are not malfunctioning when you hiccup. You are running a perfectly good fish program on a body that stopped being a fish a very, very long time ago. Let's look at the little machine that runs the whole thing because it works like a trap that springs itself. A hiccup isn't a single action, it's a loop with three parts. First, something irritates a nerve down in your chest or your gut, that's the sensor. That signal shoots up to a small cluster of cells buried in your brainstem, a built-in rhythm generator with exactly one job: fire the ancient pattern. In the instant it fires the command back down the phrenic nerve to your diaphragm and to the muscle that snaps your glottis shut. Trigger brainstem action, round and round. Here's the unsettling part. That rhythm generator never asks your thinking brain for permission, and it never checks whether the action is actually useful. It just runs the pattern it was born knowing, the same pattern a tadpole is born knowing, because it's the same inheritance. You are not deciding to hiccup. A 400-million-year-old subroutine is deciding for you, and you're just the passenger. Let's answer the obvious question sitting on your tongue right now. If it's useless, if it's a leftover, if it can even get you eaten, why hasn't evolution just deleted it? And the answer tells you something deep about how you're built. Evolution isn't a programmer who goes back and cleans up old code. It's a builder who never ever tears anything down. It only stacks new work on top of what's already there. And that ancient hiccup circuit isn't sitting somewhere convenient. It's buried deep in your brainstem, the oldest, most primitive part of your brain, knotted right in with the circuits that keep you breathing and swallowing without thinking. The circuits that keep you alive. You can't rip out the old wiring without risking the wiring right next to it that you cannot live without. So the body does the only safe thing: it leaves it. It leaves the ancient program sitting there, dormant, mostly quiet, mostly harmless, waiting for something to trip it. This isn't a design flaw someone should have caught. This isn't a disease you can cure. This is just history still running in the basement. Your hiccup survives for the same reason an old load-bearing wall survives 100 renovations. Tearing it out is more dangerous than leaving it standing. Let's talk about who actually hiccups the most, because, and this genuinely surprised me, it isn't you. Not even close. The champions are the ones who haven't taken a single breath of air yet. A human fetus starts hiccuping in the womb at around 9 weeks. 9 weeks, long before the lungs work, long before there's any air to breathe, that tiny body is already firing the ancient rhythm. And newborns do it constantly, way more than adults. The younger the human, the more they hiccup, and it slowly fades as you grow up. If you've ever been pregnant or been close to someone who was, you might have felt it yourself, a set of soft, steady, rhythmic little taps from the inside, always at the same gentle pace, sometimes going on for 10 or 20 minutes straight. That's not kicking. That's the baby hiccuping, weeks and months before it will ever take a single breath of air. And doctors usually take it as a good sign, proof that the nervous system is wiring itself together right on schedule. Think about what that's telling you. The reflex is loudest right at the very beginning of life, when we are physically closest to those primitive early stages, and it quiets down the further we get from them. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting again. In 2019, researchers at University College London, led by Kimberly Whitehead, wired up newborn babies and watched their brains during hiccups. And every single hiccup set off a big burst of activity in the baby's brain. Their idea is that in a newborn, the hiccup might still be doing one last useful job, helping the baby's brain learn to feel and control the muscle it's going to need for a lifetime of breathing. A little tutorial. A test run, so the reflex may not be totally pointless at the very start. It might be the way your body first learns to breathe at all. And then once you've grown up and the lesson is long over, the tutorial just never uninstalls. It's the free trial you forgot to cancel, still charging you at the worst possible moments for the rest of your life. Let's talk about who else is stuck with this, because you are absolutely not alone. Hiccups are not some human quirk. Cats hiccup, dogs hiccup, rats and rabbits hiccup. Kittens and puppies get them constantly, tiny bodies twitching with the exact same little rhythm as a human newborn. And that fact all on its own is a giant clue. When you find the identical reflex wired the identical way, running through cats and dogs and rats and people, there's really only one clean explanation. Nobody invented it 4 separate times. We all inherited it from the same distant ancestor long before any of us branched off into cats or dogs or humans. Your hiccup and your dog's hiccup are cousins. They trace back to the same swamp. So the next time your dog does that soft, rhythmic little hic on the couch and looks up at you, genuinely confused about the sound coming out of its own body, you two are sharing something 400 million years old. You're both just running the fish. Let's talk about what actually pulls the trigger, because it explains every hiccup you have ever had. Eating too fast, a meal that's too big, fizzy drinks, alcohol, a sudden jolt of excitement or stress, a quick swing in temperature like cold water on a hot day. On the surface, those seem like a random list, but they all do the same thing. They stretch, press on, or irritate the nerves running through that ancient region, the phrenic nerve and especially the vagus nerve, the old wiring that winds down past your stomach and your diaphragm. Overload that old circuit, jostle it hard enough, and it misfires the 400-million-year-old program. Which, by the way, explains something you've probably noticed your whole life without questioning it. Why do hiccups always seem to show up at celebrations? The champagne toast at the wedding, the big holiday dinner. Well, look at the recipe. Carbonation plus alcohol plus a stomach stuffed full plus a rush of excitement. That is the perfect storm for waking up your inner fish. Your body picks the single happiest, most public moment it can find, and that's exactly when 400 million years of history decides to introduce itself to the entire room. Let's talk about the cures, and about the one man who couldn't find one for 68 years. Every folk remedy you've ever heard actually points at the same idea. Holding your breath works because it lets carbon dioxide build up in your blood, and that rising carbon dioxide seems to calm the misfiring circuit down. Getting startled, gulping water, pulling your knees up to your chest, breathing into a bag, they're all just crude ways to jolt or reset that vagus nerve, to interrupt the loop and knock the old program back to sleep. There's real logic under the folklore. The carbon dioxide that builds up when you hold your breath tells your brainstem to drop the nonsense rhythm and prioritize real breathing instead. The startle, the cold water, the knees pulled to your chest, they flood that vagus nerve with a competing signal, basically shouting over the hiccup circuit until it loses its place and quits. You're not curing anything. You're distracting a very old, very stubborn machine just long enough for it to forget what it was doing. None of them are magic. They're just ways of poking the ancient wiring until it stops. But sometimes it doesn't stop. Meet Charles Osborne, an American man who in 1922 started to hiccup after an accident, and he did not stop, not for days, not for years. He hiccuped continuously until 1990, 68 years. Researchers estimated he hiccuped somewhere around 430 million times, and here's the part that gets me: he lived an entire life through it. He married, he raised children, he grew old. All of it every single day, with that ancient fish rhythm firing away in his chest, on and on and on. He became famous for it. He landed in the record books. Strangers mailed him cures from all over the world, home remedies, folk tricks, prayers, every last one of them useless. And then after 68 years, in a final twist nobody can fully explain, the hiccups simply stopped on their own. He got about one quiet year before he died. There's something almost poetic in that. A man who spent nearly 7 decades as a living drum for a 400-million-year-old rhythm finally handed a little silence at the very end. Now, to be clear, hiccups that refuse to quit for days on end can actually be a warning that a nerve is being irritated by something that needs a doctor's attention. So the long ones are worth taking seriously. But for you, on a normal Tuesday at a normal dinner, it's nothing dangerous. It's just the deep past knocking politely at the worst possible time. Let's zoom all the way out, because the hiccup is only one exhibit in a very large museum. And that museum is your own body. You are not a clean, from-scratch design. You are a stack of hand-me-downs 400 million years deep, and once you know where to look, the old parts are everywhere. You've got a tailbone tucked at the base of your spine, left from when your ancestors had actual tails. You get goosebumps, a leftover from when they had thick fur to fluff up. That absurd nerve running from your neck to your diaphragm, from back when your breathing gear sat up near the gills. And that lazy nerve has a twin. There's another wire in you, the recurrent laryngeal nerve, that runs from your brain down toward your voice box, and instead of taking the short, sensible route of a couple of inches, it plunges all the way down into your chest, loops under a big artery beside your heart, and climbs back up. A pointless detour for the very same reason. It's still following a path that made sense when these nerves served the gill arches of a fish. In a giraffe, that same silly loop stretches something like 15 feet to reach a voice box sitting a single foot from the brain. No one would ever build it that way. Evolution didn't build it. It inherited it exactly like you did. Piece by piece, you are wearing the whole history of life on Earth on the inside. And the hiccup might just be the loudest exhibit of them all, because it's the only one that actually makes a sound. Every single hic is a tiny echo of a swamp you have never swum in and never will. So let's go back to that dinner, that first date, that interview, that toast with the whole family watching. The next time your body betrays you with a sudden hic at the worst possible moment and every head at the table turns to look at you, you don't have to be embarrassed. You can smile, because what just happened inside your chest is older than every human who has ever lived, older than fire, older than farming, older than dry land itself. It is the ghost of a fish that learned to breathe in a shrinking, muddy pool 400 million years ago, still running its little program deep inside you, faithfully forever. Water, gills, breath, that hic is not a flaw in you, it's a receipt. Quiet proof of every ancestor it took to build the strange, patched-together 400-million-year-old animal sitting there watching this right now. That's you, that is exactly what you are. So tell me down in the comments, what's the worst possible moment a hiccup has ever ambushed you? First date, mid-speech, right when you were trying to sound serious, I want to hear it. And if this quietly rewired how you look at your own body even a little, stick around. There's a lot more where this came from.